Hello and welcome to Protect Your Code with Axonator. I am Steve Einan, and for those of you who don't know me, I am the CEO of StackHub, a package and file sharing e-commerce website. I am also known for my computer programming endeavours, and some of you may know me for Escape the Mainframe, a 3D jump game written in Fantom. But today, I'm here to talk about Axonator, and as the name suggests, Axonator is all about Axon. So first, let's recap what Axon is. First, there was SkySpark. And SkySpark is the reason why we're all here at SkyPosium 2017. So hopefully we all know what SkySpark is. And then there was Axon. Axon is the built-in scripting language of SkySpark. It is used to query Folio, the SkySpark database, manipulate data grids, and time series history data. Anyone who's been to one of Adam Wallen's training courses will know that Axon is really good at this, and it's great at analytics too. Now over the past 2 days, you've probably also learned that SkyFoundry are pushing Axon even further. They've introduced the View Builder app, and they want you to use Axon to build GUIs. They want you to use Axon to build tools, and they want you to use Axon to build applications. In all, Axon is becoming very key to external SkySpark development. Which leads us to Axonator. Now, I've been to a couple of SkyFoundry events, and every time I hear the same question from you techies: how can I protect my Axon code? And there's never been a suitable answer, until now. In brief, Axonator is a software tool that encrypts your Axon source code so it cannot be read by others. More specifically, Axonator is a SkySpark extension which you can download today from the StackHub website. It encrypts Axon functions and trio files. It creates new Axon functions that can be called in an identical manner to the original functions. This means they can be used as drop-in replacements. But the functions will only run if the user has a secret key. Now how you distribute that secret key is entirely up to you. But if you distribute the secret key in a StackHub license file, then Axonator is free to use. Now let's look at a practical application of Axonator. We're going to talk about Fred Bloggs. Fred is an inventor and a developer, and he's been making a new product called the Cloud Counter. It takes a camera, points it at the sky, and it counts the number of clouds, thus giving a very accurate and localized weather report. Fred worked very hard on Cloud Counter, and so it contains lots and lots of Axon functions, which are wrapped up as plain text in a trio file. The trio file is then zipped up into a pod and a SkySpark extension, and distributed on StackHub. This all works well, and Fred is happily making money selling Cloud Counter on StackHub, but one day, Fred discovers that another company called Evil Corp downloaded his product, unzipped the pod file, read the plain text in the trio file, and stole his Axon source code. And now Evil Corp are selling their own Cloud Counter and making money off Fred's hard work. Poor Fred has been ripped off. But it doesn't have to be like this. Let's see how Axonator can help. Let's jump straight into the deep end and look at some Axon code. But we'll start with what I hope is a very simple Hello World example. It is an Axon function that takes a name and returns a string, hello name. Axonator takes the original source code and transforms it into the Axonated source code. Whilst anyone can read and understand the original source code, if you were just presented with the Axonated source code, then you wouldn't have a foggiest what it does. From an end user perspective, if I were to invoke the original function, I would call hello mum, and if I were to call the Axonated function, then I would call hello mum. Did you notice the difference? Nope, that's because they're identical, and that's the whole point. Because you can call the Axonated functions in exactly the same way as the original functions. Therefore, the Axonated functions can be used as drop-in replacements. So back to the Cloud Counter example. If Fred were to replace his Cloud Counter Axon functions with the encrypted Axonated functions, then everything will work just as it did. Only this time round, if Evil Corp tries to steal his code, all they would get is encrypted gobbledygook, which in its raw form is no use to anyone. But Fred can go one step further, for encrypting source code gives another benefit. Because encryption naturally introduces the concept of a secret key, meaning only end users who have the secret key can decrypt the code, and hence only those end users who have the secret key can execute the Axon functions. If anyone tries to run the encrypted Axonated code with the wrong secret key, or with no secret key, then boom! Error. This means you can pick and choose who can run your code simply by supplying them with the secret key, or not. Let's take a closer look at the Axonated code. Every Axonated function comprises of just 3 lines of code. The first line is the gobbledygook at the top. This is the original Axon code that's been encrypted. For small functions, like our Hello World example, it can be quite large. But note that Axonator also compresses your source code before encrypting. So large functions actually take up less characters than the original, because as we all know, size matters. The second line is the key function. This is a little bit of Axon that you write and give to Axonator before it encrypts the code. It can do whatever you like as long as it returns the secret key as a string. It is the ability to customize this key function that makes Axonator so powerful. So we'll look at this in a bit more detail on the next slide. Now the third line calls into Axonator, passing in the encrypted source code, the secret key, and any function parameters. Axonator then decrypts the source code and executes it. So, that key function. It is an Axon function that you write that returns the secret key. Axonator will then embed the key function into the Axonated source code. This gives you complete control of how to distribute the secret key. The simplest key function is the one that just returns a hard-coded string, the secret key itself. The secret key then becomes part of the Axonated source code and is distributed as is. Now, the clever ones amongst you may be thinking, hang on, if the secret key is distributed in the Axonated source code, and that is distributed as plain text, then that means the secret key is not very secret, is it? That is true. But does it need to be? Going back to Fred and his cloud counter product, if he hard-codes the secret key, then yes, Evil Corp can execute his code, but they can't read it, hence they cannot steal it. So this example still works for Fred. But if you did want to restrict usage, then you can hide the secret key anywhere. You could hide it in a properties file on the server, or you could embed it as a record in the Folio database. But it doesn't have to be on the SkySpark server. You could hide it on your own license server behind a REST API. Hell, you could even go bonkers biometric and tie it into fingerprint readers or eyeball scanners. Make it as secure as you want. Or, if you let me indulge in a minute or two of shameless StackHub promotion, you could distribute the secret key in a StackHub license file. If you sell a product on StackHub, then StackHub generates a license file for the customer. StackHub may not restrict people from downloading your product, but it can restrict product usage to a specific SkySpark installation or a specific SkySpark organization. So if you distribute your secret key in a StackHub license file, you're able to automatically make use of these restriction features. That means only those who've actually bought your product and have a legitimate license can execute your Axon functions. Moreover, if you were to distribute the secret key via a StackHub license file as we've been talking about, then usage of Axonator is free. Our end goal is being able to execute the original Axon code. To do this, SkySpark needs to compile it, and to do that, it needs the original source code. So by the power of two-way encryption, Axonator is able to take the encrypted Axonated code and the secret key, and from that, reproduce the original Axon code. If we go back to Fred blogs, we're now able to do a round trip, because Fred creates his cloud counter in Axon and passes the source code through Axonator. Axonator transforms it into encrypted source code, which Fred packages up in his pod file and then sells it as an SkySpark extension on StackHub. He then embeds the secret key in the StackHub license file, thus restricting Cloud Counter usage to just those organizations who purchase it. Evil Corp are no longer able to read or steal Fred's work, and they even have to buy it if they want to use it. Now, when a customer runs a Cloud Counter Axon function, they retrieve the secret key from the StackHub license file and pass it, along with the encrypted Axon code, to Axonator. Axonator reconstitutes the original Axon source code and passes it into SkySpark, who compiles and executes it. Bonus slide for this video presentation on security. Axonator uses 128-bit Advanced Encryption Standard, or AES, two-way encryption, which is considered pretty strong. Axonator could use stronger encryption and more bits, but to do so would require the end user to install the Java Cryptography Extension, or JCE, Unlimited Strength Jurisdiction Policy, because US export laws don't allow anything stronger to be sold to foreign countries. Given not everyone has this, Axonator defaults to 128 bits. Wanting to test the strength of such encryption myself, I embarked upon an interesting experiment. I tried to crack Axonator myself and wrote a simple brute force attack algorithm that tries to crack the encryption and find the secret key. The algorithm kept track of progress and displayed an estimation of how much time it had left to complete. After running for a day on my development machine, its estimate was that it needed to run for a further 100 septillion years to finish. Now that is 100 million years. Now, given our sun would have burnt out several times by then, I conclude that 128-bit encryption is pretty good. Now, security is all about raising the bar of discouragement, and I think you'll find Axonator raises it pretty high. And that's Axonator. Let's recap the main points. Axonator is a SkySpark extension and is freely available on StackHub. It encrypts Axon source code, creating drop-in replacement functions. Encryption introduces a secret key, and how that is distributed is entirely up to you. Note that use of Axonator is entirely free if you distribute the secret key via a StackHub license file. Wow. If you have any questions, you can either email me at StackHub or you can find me on one of the Fantom chat channels. I am Steve Einen, and this has been Protect Your Code with Axonator. Thank you and good night.